Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast. You're getting a lot of us right now, but with the NCAA tournament and going to Milwaukee, watching the Cyclones, and then with Iowa coaching hire, I just think you can't wait a week to talk about it like we do a lot of times. So special guest tonight, TJ Tassell is joining us, Hawkeye fan, basketball coach, basketball family, Diagonal originator, and then his dad moved on. But back in the day, Diagonal Maroons, and resident bigger Hawkeye fan, much bigger than me in basketball. So with Ben McCullum being hired today as the new Iowa men's basketball coach, just first thoughts. You've seen Drake play a little bit, not a lot, I'm sure, this year, just because it is Drake, and we don't always watch the most of Drake, especially if you don't have ESPN Plus. As a Cyclone fan, I do, but as a Hawkeye, you don't need ESPN Plus to watch their games. How much have you watched Drake and Ben McCullum, and how excited are you, and then just the Hawkeye fan base in general, with a new coach, and maybe not your 1A, but definitely your 1B? If it didn't get done today and Beth Getz missed on McCullum, even if she was going after her number one and got it, if it wasn't DeVries and it wasn't McCullum, the Hawkeye fan base would have had a mini revolt, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one. I'll touch on that first. I think, the fan base has made up their mind. You know, they really wanted DeVries, and then McCullum was always in the talking, and I think they were going to be happy with either one of those two. But besides getting a Bobby Knight or a Tom Izzo, I don't see them being happy with not choosing either McCullum or DeVries or getting one of those two. And I know DeVries was off the table, but I think it's pretty cool. You know, for me, that would be a lifelong dream. And I know he kind of said that he was a Hawkeye a little bit growing up, and it was just kind of a dream job for him. Storm Lake guy, he's about an hour from where I live, and I know they have a D1 recruit that was one of the Fran's. He really loved Fran. Fran came and saw him a few times this year, I believe, and maybe they'll still have a chance of keeping him, because McCullum, I'm sure, if he's on his radar, or at least part of what he wants to do at Iowa and those things. The biggest thing with Iowa is they got to realize that, and I'm sure you'll touch at some point, or you've probably talked about it before, is, we put a lot of money into football, and girls basketball's been doing well, and they've been getting some in wrestling, and we got to pick it up with our basketball a little bit. I think with hiring McCullum, you're not having to pay out a big buyout of his contract, possibly as big as you would for a DeVries. I thought I saw he got like $6 million or something buyout for West Virginia. I just did a little reading on him, and it sounds like he has really good relationships with his players, so he can ask them to do the things he wants. He can kind of control them a little more, kind of a Bobby Knight style, but maybe more new aged. And then they talked about his pace of play, how it's going to be slower. I only watched Drake the 2 times this year. I haven't had a chance to, log in and watch him or go and see him like I wanted to. I'd love to go watch Drake once a year, if I didn't have my own kids' things to go to and all that. But he, I don't care as long as you win. And I love his players that he's got, how he does have control on them, but he also lets them play a little bit too. And then the biggest difference, I think, is I looked at, they were talking about how it's going to be a lot slower pace than Fran. Well, he was quoted that, it's because we don't have the athletes that maybe a Indiana or a Iowa State or somebody gets. So we have to kind of control the pace that way. I looked in at Northwest Missouri State. He had 2 teams, one went 38-0 and one went 35-0, and they have both averaged around 83 points a game. So they're scoring there too. I think it's just going to take a couple of years, just like it would for anybody that's not been at the Big 10 or Big 12 level to get some of those players that they might not get at a Drake. And he's going to have to learn a little bit of that rope, I would say.
I heard this. One of the people I listened to on podcasts or I was reading or whatever, that sounds like someone that the Hawkeye fans trust in everything in Kirk Ferentz. He understands he's got to control the game because he starts getting in a shootout with not having as good of athletes as Michigan or Ohio State. He's got no chance.
Yeah,
but if you control it, limit possessions, and when you have a dynamite player like Bennett Sturtz, if you're down 3 or 5 with 3 minutes left, you're controlling it. You are trusting him to make the right play, hit a shot, make the pass, whatever. And then you play a good defensive possession, and now you have a shot to take the lead or win the game. When you don't have the best athletes on the court, all you want is a chance at the end. You got to stay in the game. And I was listening to the NCAA tournament and everything. The recipe for an upset and Cinderella, the game is 65-55 area. You're not going to see very many upsets, 90-85, because those teams aren't going to get that many points when they don't have the talent on the floor. But if they control the pace, and I think, the one that almost happened yesterday, Colorado State and Maryland, I think ended up 72-71. So it was a little bit higher, but it wasn't the 85-90 points. You get 85-90 points, the better athletes 95% of the time are gonna win that game.
Yeah. It's the old saying, defense wins championships and offense decides the margin of victory. That's what a college coach used to tell me. And they play good team defense, and it's kind of unique how his point guard Sturtz plays virtually the whole game.
And he's done that a long time. That's not just a Sturtz thing. That's his point guard at Northwest.
And I think maybe it's his background because he played a little bit himself, and I think he's basically molding a point guard into what he did and what he maybe couldn't do, but he wanted to, is the way I look at it. He was at Nyack and then Northwest Missouri State, and he had success at both places there. And the biggest thing is, he's a winner, and he knows how to adjust, I think, and get it done. And the biggest downfall, the only thing I could think of would be he's only got the 1 year at the Division I level, and he's never, gone at and I'll say either Big 12, Big 10, ACC, SEC levels. That's his only two things he's got against him, and it's the biggest part. And plus, he's got some players leaving, and maybe he'll get a few of those to come back to Iowa. But also, I thought I heard somewhere that one or two of his players might come with him, and Sturtz included, because Sturtz has been with him ever since he went to college and brought him to Drake. And so I'm kind of hopeful that he comes, because right now the cupboards are bearing out a little bit in Iowa.
Which, when you make a coaching change, essentially you're going to have a whole new roster anyway. I mean, Iowa State lost 3 players in the portal today. None of them played. It's not nobody that I was sitting around with Iowa State fans this weekend, and I was actually sitting and talking to Kelderman's mom and dad. And then when they left, just kind of after talking with them and everything, the other couple we were standing there talking with them, like a guy like Indrisitis, who actually isn't in the portal yet, and a couple others, like I just don't see that they got to go because they're not going to play. Because you have Kelderman, the walk-on, is playing in front of all these other guys. Some of his position, but just you can see the writing on the wall.
And that's what's nice. Go ahead.
Yeah, and just in general, it's some of these guys are asked to leave too. It's they're in the portal. You played college basketball at Grandview. It's different today, but it's still they're always trying to recruit over you. That's their job. Mm-hmm. They want the best players possible. And the 10, 11, 12 on the bench should change every year because you need to free up a scholarship to hopefully land a top 2 or 3. And then that's when you can get your 8, 9, 10, 11 deep that can play. Where Iowa State, thought they had good depth this year, 8 guys that could really play. Well, all of a sudden 2 guys at the same position are hurt, and now you're playing a walk-on in Kelderman.
Yeah.
And then also just the change in college basketball where your freshmen are not ready.
Right.
If you want to be a top 15 team, unless you're going to be the number 1 pick in the draft in Cooper Flag, or you're Duke, UConn, someone, a true blue blood that gets a top 10 player, you're not going to win games in March with freshmen.
Yeah, it's like I watched the kid at Storm Lake twice this year. We played it. My son's team played him, and we beat him once and lost once. And I kind of evaluate players as I watch, and if we got to play him the second time, I can tell my son, hey, if you have to guard this kid, here's what I would do, and try to give him some pointers. And I think he's got to put on a little upper body muscle. He's got a lot of tools.
I was impressed with him.
Yeah, he's very athletic, and he can shoot the 3. And I mean, I think just a little bit of the physicality, especially like going into a Big Ten like that and those things. So like, I agree with you on that. It's hard for a kid to go to that level right out of high school. It'd be nice if they could be a backup to somebody and get, 7-8 minutes a half if they're that good, or, but when they got to step in and be right out of the chutes, it's tough.
Unfortunately, I think a player like him and most freshmen almost should go to a Drake or a UNI, go be a stud for a year. Yes, you're not going to get, Iowa State or Iowa might offer you $100,000 or whatever as a freshman. And Drake and UNI are going to pay you 20. Let's just use that for a number. I have no idea if those are the right numbers or not. Doesn't matter. Go make that 20. But if you have a great season and you go become all conference, now you can parlay that into 250 at Iowa or Iowa State
and
or somewhere else.
Bigger than Iowa and Iowa State. Yep. I mean, not to knock either of those schools, but that's the one thing I was going to say I like about the portal. Yep. It's kind of like a JUCO for you.
Yep. Oh, Drake's a JUCO. UNI's a JUCO.
Yep.
It's
you can
just
go
the
and make them make it, and then possibly go bigger, or you can make it and be right there where you want to be. I mean, that's because I went junior college out of high school. Not small town kid, not getting the looks that you hope for, and I'm only 6'6'1", somewhere around there, and you don't get as much offers and those things. But
yeah, now just in general, as you're not a season ticket holder to football or basketball, are you?
Not anymore. My kids make me too busy on the weekends for football. Otherwise, I'd probably still have football.
Yeah, I hear you. As I was having a conversation with my dad yesterday, he called like right before the game started. I'm in the arena and I get a text and a message from my dad. Hey, call me.
Sounds like my mom.
Yeah, it's like, you know what I'm doing. And now it was a little bit about the football parking and everything. Things are changing, and you know how it is. Prices go up, and a little bit of changes. And Dad's like, "Well, when's Tyler soccer?" I'm like, "I'm not going to know that till August 1st, and we got to make a decision before that to get the spot." And I'm just like, "Well, I mean, I think we do it, and then we just make the best of it, and it's fun when we do there. If we have to miss a game,
sell it if you have to,
yeah,
for a weekend or whatever."
Yeah. So, but just in that, so do you get any communication from the Swarm as a Hawkeye fan? Because maybe you used to be a ticket holder. Like I get stuff from Bloom because not that I've donated to the collective directly, but I'll go to an event where it's $20 to get in, and you get your name on a list, or things like that. So I get information, and then things like that. I didn't know how Iowa was in that, and if you got any communication like that, and how much they're asking for money, which, Iowa State's always asking for money, and they have to, unfortunately, because portal opened today. Every Hawkeye's in it, and now it's up to Ben McCullum to fill a roster, and Bennett Sturtz is not. I mean, everybody assumes he's going to Iowa with him, and I think I would say that's 80%, maybe even 90% that I believe that's going to happen. But there's a number there. If I was only going to offer him $500,000 and another school is going to offer him $1 million, watching him, I don't think he's an NBA player. I think he's a Europe guy. I mean, I think he can play for some money, and for how long is whatever, but that's tough to turn down. You start with $500,000 or $1 million. That's a heck of a start in life. that you never had, I never had, that these guys are able to do now. And you can't blame him to go. And the one school that I think is a wild card here that some people is Kansas State. His girlfriend goes there. His mom and dad were both Wildcats. I think they were both athletes at Kansas State. He's from Liberty, Missouri, so that's closer to home. It's not home, but it's closer to home. But I think he's a McCullum guy. I think he'll,
Right.
And the other thing is McCullum, with you talked about earlier, the relationship that they have. If he gets a better offer, McCullum, I truly believe, will tell him to go.
That's what I was going to say. It's like Kirk Ferentz. He tells Dallas Clark, you got this. You can't probably repeat this season.
Yep.
I would take the offer. You're probably a first-round guy. I would go. Do I want you to stay? Yes, we could use you. But, I mean, they're good coaches, good guys in that way. And I believe that, McCullum's the same way, and he wants what's best for that kid, especially since they've been together so long. And yeah, that is a big risk, especially if, K-State would offer more. And how much is McCullum getting to work with, especially the first year? And Sturts has also got to have in the back of his mind, all these Iowa guys are leaving. I would have liked to play with a few of them.
Right.
And we're going to be rebuilding for 2 years, and I've only got, 1 year left?
Yeah, I believe he's only got 1 year left.
So I mean, he's got to look at that too. And despite, I agree, probably a Europe guy, like you said, unless he can find a role like a John Paxson or a Steve Kerr from the past and be a corner shooter. But then, that was my goal. As I was a little kid, I always wanted to be the John Paxson or Steve Kerr because I knew I wasn't going to be 6'5" or taller, and this and that. But
then you look at George Niang. He was a very, very good college player, All-American and everything. But I wouldn't have said he's going to have a 10-year NBA career. And but he committed to one thing. He's a three-point shooter now, which is crazy. When you watch him in college, he didn't shoot that many threes. But he was smart enough and understood to be in the NBA when you're not just an elite player, you have to be specific at one thing. Kyle Korver, three-point shooter.
Saw that.
George Niang, three-point shooter. George Niang has the most three-pointers ever by a Cyclone. I mean, and you think about Jeff Hornacek, who played with all those Jazz teams for so long, that was kind of that off-guard three-point shooter.
I didn't know that. I mean, there's so many guys, you think about it. Like, look at all the players of the year. And I know I can't think of specifics right now, but, you got a Rasheed Wallace who was an awesome college basketball player. And I don't remember him. I mean, he had a good career in the NBA, but he was never elite, I didn't feel. I mean, at times, but, or Luka Garza, too, but I knew Luka was going to struggle because it's not the old NBA where you got a big center and this and that. But he's bouncing around a little bit. And I don't know. It's such a big jump. I mean, football, college, or college and NBA to NBA, college to NFL. You've got guys that are just spectacular in college, and then you don't hear a lot about them. And a lot of that, I think, is luck. And I'm going to refer back to it. I don't like keep bringing it up, but Dallas Clark, he doesn't go to the Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning. He might not have the career he did. It's a little bit of luck on the team and the position that he got.
Brock Purdy is a perfect example. He
Yeah.
went to the right system. Two guys got hurt.
Chance.
All of a sudden, he won some football games because he had a really good team around him.
Yep.
Now he's probably going to get paid $50 million a year.
Yeah. And like he's back to Sturts. I can't blame the kid if he goes somewhere for $1 million versus or 100,000 or what, double what
he's going to get offered $1 million, I think, from somebody. Whether he takes it or not is
right. I don't know. And maybe he just would turn that down. I don't know. That'd be hard to do, especially as a 20-some-year-old kid.
Right. When it's one thing if the next offer was 900,000.
Right.
If the next offer is 500,000.
I don't know how you turn it down.
Yeah.
Because for one, you get injured, you're done probably anyway. I don't know.
I mean, the money is just crazy, and you and I were both 45 years old, and it's way different. But you played college sports. I was around college sports, and you just saw people struggle, and you tried to help everything out, and you had the scholarship and the food, and I was at a different level than you were. But now, I mean, everything I've been heard and told in the Big 12, if you're a starting player, there's not anybody that's less than $250,000.
I totally understand or believe that because there's a teacher I teach with, and her dad is a coach. I think it's Davenport North that had the stud girl
The girls,
basketball player.
the two girls,
Yeah,
that one's going to LSU and one's going to
LSU.
Iowa.
Yep. And she was telling me, and she said, I don't know the difference between the two. One, if she works hard, she'll be okay. The other one turned down. Was it Tennessee offered her 100,000 guaranteed as long as she's on the team? Doesn't even have to play. And she went to LSU. So I wonder what LSU offered. And then
Right.
she's got clothing that she designed or that they came up with, and she sells that. And she never, I mean, virtually, if she plays her cards right, invests with a good investments, she might not ever have to get a job in her life, whether she plays basketball in WNBA or not, you know? And think about that. And then you think about, well, what kind of money is Caitlin Clark, dealing with all her? She's the modern day Michael Jordan for women's sports, making all these endorsements too, So,
Yeah, I don't think Caitlin Clark would probably ever have to do anything again, but she's trying to be, as you just exactly put it, the Michael Jordan of her era,
yeah.
and
And,
becoming. I mean, I think her goal should be to be a billionaire
yeah.
with products and endorsements, and
Well, and I
she's
think
not
she
going to
wants to
make
win
it
a
on the
championship.
court, but she's going to make it off the court. And
Yeah.
then her goal in life, I believe, right now should be on the court, is to make the WNBA as much money as they can, so they can help the players now, and then the players in the future make money. I mean,
Yep.
you kind of
And
think of Tiger Woods in that effect, where he didn't make all the money, and then you can even go back further, where Jack and Arnold. I think I saw where Arnold Palmer in his career won like $3.5 million, and Roy McIlroy won the Players 2 weeks ago and won $4 million in one tournament, on the
yeah,
backs
that's
of
crazy.
Arnold and Jack and all
And
the
then
others, and then
Tiger.
Tiger
Yeah.
being the big push towards the end here.
Well, and that's kind of like what Jordan did too. I heard the story Barkley. He said Michael Jordan, he was trying to get more money from Nike on his contract. And Michael goes, no, just have them put you in, buy you shares. And he said, you'll never have to work again if it keeps going. And so,
Right.
I mean, and Barkley credits Jordan for that, and
Well, we all saw the movie Air. Jordan's mom was the big deal, $1 a shoe or whatever it is. And I mean, it's crazy, but that
yeah,
made him all his money.
yeah, she was a smart mind. And I love that movie, by the way, because it reminded me all those days when I was a little kid watching him and all the things that came out. And it just kind of took me back to those days. But I think another goal, Caitlin Clark, I think she wants to prove it too on the court and possibly win a championship or two. And I don't know, I don't follow it closely at all, but I thought I saw that they were making some moves to get her some players that she gels with. I thought I saw, I can't remember her name now, but the girl that played with her at Iowa, the blonde girl, that
The
played in Vegas last year, I believe.
Kate Martin.
Yeah, I think they were talking about trying to make a deal to get Kate Martin
I
there.
know, Trevor's our women's basketball person, and you know that here.
Okay.
That their team's way better. They got a way better coach, and their team's way better.
Yeah.
And he's like, they have a chance. He goes,
Yep.
obviously you don't know. I mean, things happen.
Right. Yeah.
But he goes,
Look at March Madness.
they made the moves to try to win now.
Yeah.
And that's all you can ask for. I mean, you can't guarantee it, but they tried.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. It's fun to watch, but you could go down a rabbit hole and read on stuff all day long and never get anywhere. And you could never look at it and just get on it once in a while, kind of like I do. And you kind of get on a little more than I do. I don't know, but for obviously reasons having the podcast, and you can know a lot in 5 minutes, and it's so crazy how times have changed.
You always have to read the paper, and that's all we ever get. Now I got I had texts this morning from about 7:15 to about 8:30 at different reports. It is done. It's 90% done. It's 87%
Yep.
done. It's imminent. Josh Sash is going with them. Sturts and Isaiah Young are going with them. They're not going with them. I mean, it's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The people that are going with that they think are going to stay at Iowa, things are going to go. The guys that are going to go, and no chance they come back. I subscribe to the Des Moines Register, so I get those texts, and then I pay for some Hawkeye Insider and Cyclone Insider stuff. So I do try to get, I try to support, some of that local media type stuff to try to, I like getting that information. That's the stuff that fascinates me. Coaching hires and coaching moves and player movement. That's the stuff that's fun. It's like I don't care like sitting in that room in that negotiation with Getz and McCullum, what did Getz put out first? What did McCullum come back with? Again, I don't care about the numbers. If it's 3 million, 4 million, 7 million, 27 million, it doesn't matter to me. That stuff is interesting to me. Those are the things I'd like to know and sit and be a fly on the wall there.
Well, and she was kind of, back to your original, back against the wall a little bit when they didn't get DeVries, and you got to fire Fran. Everybody was wanting him to be fired, or a lot of people, I guess. And then a lot of people were saying how they didn't want him to be fired and this and that. But, there's times when it's kind of like my dad was a school administrator, and I had another administrator tell me one time after about 5 to 7 years, you usually need to look for a place to move on because you've either made somebody mad in the school board or whatever, and it just comes down to winning. And if you don't win at that level, they want somebody that they think can or can give you a shot at least.
And we talked about this, and I think this was a financial decision. This was not a wins and losses decision. And I know you and I haven't talked about this on the podcast, but this was because 3,000 fans were in attendance every game.
Yeah.
And the NIL, they were not raising the money they needed. It was not about wins and losses. He won enough to stick around. Now, I think it was one of those, you need to win more, get to the NCAA tournament next year or something. But he could have survived if the fans were still coming and the money was in the NIL coffers at the school.
Not to sound bad against women's sports, but it's a problem if you're putting in less people in the stands than the women's usually on a continuous basis. Now, granted, last year he couldn't compete with the Caitlin Clark fanatics, but and there was going to be a little bit of that against him. But maybe, I don't know. I don't know. It goes back to, I don't know, before Fran came, I went and watched Iowa, and I could sit anywhere I wanted to before Fran came. Then Fran came, and after a couple of years, it's filled up a little while, and then it kind of has gradually gone back to that. You can go in there and you can get in the first 10 rows sometimes,
Right.
But, and that's where I think the atmosphere needs to change, not just the fans in the place. That's the start. But then once they're in there, it's different atmosphere. And I will say, I'm a big Iowa fan, not a big Iowa State fan, but I would enjoy watching Iowa State more this year than Iowa. I enjoyed I think the atmosphere in Hilton is better just because I feel like they're more on top of you. Look at Duke. You got Cameron Indoor. It's like they're right on top of you. And that's the atmosphere you need in those type of settings. We don't need to be sitting back 40 feet and, but I don't know. That's just me. And it's kind of goes with the Wells Fargo versus Vets. You can't get anywhere close to the court, and you're so far away, and this and that. And that's nostalgia for me, I guess, a little bit too.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about with the Hawkeye coaching hire before we move on to Iowa State and then the NCAA tournament?
About what'd you say there?
We'll just move on to Iowa State and then NCAA. But I think you said you wanted one more thing.
Oh, yeah. Just one more thing would be that I thought it was pretty cool. Local guy to you guys' area and another local Iowa guy, Josh Sash, getting his chance to go be his assistant. I honestly wondered if Drake might not try to hire him or somebody else on
I
staff.
don't
And I
think
know
he's just quite ready. I mean, I think
that's
he's close. I don't
yeah.
know if he's quite ready for that. He needs.
And
I
that
think
was
this was the good move. Go here, go win, go be the top assistant. I don't know if he will be at the
and
Big
learn
Ten
some more.
program,
Yeah.
and then go back to a Drake or a South Dakota State,
Yeah.
kind of like what TJ did, things like
Yep.
that, and then a step or two up to get back up, and then you can go be an Iowa coach or a
Yeah.
Minnesota coach or.
That's kind of what I thought would happen, but I just didn't know because what's Drake gonna do? And not to dwell on them, but I'm sure they're looking
I think
probably
a
for
couple Iowa
someone.
State assistants should be in play for that one.
Okay.
And then I think Matt Gaden should be in play for that. And Ben McCullum needs to make a good push, I believe, to hire him at Iowa. But I
That
think
might keep
Drake should hire
somebody too.
Gaten or should interview Gaten. You don't have to hire him. He may not be ready yet either. But he was
Right.
an assistant there. And then at Iowa, South Dakota State guy would be good. I think the Omaha guy would be good. Iowa State's got a couple assistants with Drake ties. So there's some guys around. And then Harden's 3 for 3. The 3 coaches he's
Yeah.
hired at Drake in the
That was
last
something.
10 days are now the head coach at Minnesota, Iowa, and Indiana. So all 3
Yeah.
Big Ten head coaches now. So
That's a pretty good. Maybe he's in the line for a new AD job too.
well, I would be. I don't know how much longer Jimmy Pollard has. He's just getting to the age where he could retire tomorrow if he wanted.
Yeah.
He would be high on my list on who I'd want to hire.
Yeah, he does a good job, especially at it's that level, and you're competing with the big dogs at the level above you, so to say. He does pretty good, I think.
Yep.
But,
All right, let's move on to Iowa State. If you've listened to the podcast or you follow me, you know I was in Milwaukee all weekend. Super disappointing last night. Iowa State ran out of gas. I truly believe Lipsy was not close to 100%. You could see it. He couldn't move. Keyshawn Gilbert, your best on-ball defender, and bigger. That's the other thing. He's 6'4", bigger than Curtis Jones and Lipsy to be able to guard the ball and put more pressure on it. That's where Iowa State missed Gilbert, was on the defensive end.
yeah.
Gave up 91 points. Ole Miss couldn't miss. I will give them. They shot lights out. They hit some tough shots. Iowa State couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Milan went 2 for 12. I think he was 1 for 8 from 3. 0 for 4 at halftime, and had 3 or 4 of them. All of them were good looks. 3 of them were wide open. He needed to hit a couple. I told Laura before the game, I go, Jones has got to have 20 to 25, and Milan has to have 20 to 25 for us to win. Jones had his, and Milan didn't. So we weren't going to win.
Yeah, I was talking to another guy that's a big Iowa State fan on Friday night, and he was, well, I might go. And I think they ended up going and being there too. But he was saying, I like our chances. The first game, those 2 guys scoring that many points, if they're doing that and we play consistent otherwise, we're hard to beat. And I said, I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, the defense, it's not normal Iowa State when somebody plays and scores 90 on you. The only times that happens if they're on fire like Iowa was a couple years back. And TJ always has good defense, it seems like. And then, his scores, a couple here and there or whatever. But again, not being a big Iowa State guy, I don't remember names as well as you on that. But I was shocked, to be honest. And Ole Miss has surprised me. They were I wrote down some surprise teams, I feel like, in the tournament. I didn't have them going that deep. Or I've had Iowa State beating them, is what I should say, or maybe even somebody else beating them. It might have been one of my first round upsets. But again, I don't know enough about all the other teams well enough either. But I just really, I had Michigan State against Iowa State in the next round, or coming.
I did too. And then I had Michigan State beating Iowa State. If they were 100% healthy, I believe Iowa State would have been, one, if they'd have been healthy all year, they would have been a number 1/number 2 seed. They would have been right there.
I would say
I truly
2 for
believe
sure.
that. And then even if they were coming back healthy now, they would have given Michigan State all they wanted,
It was,
and then with
yeah,
a chance to go beat Auburn as well and get to the
yeah,
Final Four. But without Gilbert, and then Lipsey being a shell of himself, and that's what makes the Gilbert thing. I truly believe he is hurt. He's not 100%, but I think what the problem was is he's cleared to play. Like, he's not so hurt that he can't play, and he just didn't want to play or said he couldn't play. I
that's
think
hard.
that's what it came down to, and the coaching staff finally just said, all right, if you two hurt to play, then you're out.
Yeah,
And that stinks because then you watch Lipsey playing with a broken thumb, playing with the groin that he can't probably even move on, but he gives it everything he has.
yeah,
And then you got another guy next to him that just shut her down. And it's not like he's a top 10 draft pick that he's saving for the NBA. That's what's frustrating to me. If he was a first-round draft pick in the NBA, I get it.
then it goes
he's
kind of like a bowl
fringe game. NBA guy at best, and he could have left a real legacy at Iowa State, and he did not.
Yeah, that is frustrating. I mean, and I don't know. I just don't understand that. I mean, I'd give anything to play any game again, and
Right.
and I know I don't have the cards on the table that he does, even though it may not be first round, but it's just, I don't know. It's hard to say that I wouldn't play in a game unless I couldn't.
Right. And then obviously there was something that he wasn't doing. They didn't want him there.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, he wasn't in Milwaukee. He wasn't So yeah, there's something there besides just being hurt.
Yeah.
And that's what's frustrating. And so here's, as a non-Cyclone fan, ranked, I think, number 5 in the country to start the year, rose up to number 2, played, first part of January, they were as good as anybody. I would have loved to went and played Auburn again. Lost on the last second, had a 20-point lead on Auburn and blew it.
Yeah.
And to what actually happened in the year, is it a failure or just a disappointment?
Excuse me. I don't even know if it's either one of those, to be honest. I think it's one of those things that life happens a little bit. And one, you're relying on a 20-some-year-old kid, and he makes some bad choices. Maybe we don't know what that was. Why he wasn't in Milwaukee. He obviously didn't put the team first because if he could have played, and then also just the injury issues. And granted, was it, Duke lost Cooper, and I it's one of those things. You get back at the right time, you play your best basketball at the right time. And I think Iowa State is a guaranteed top 10 team in the nation this year when when everybody's fully equipped. And then you could say top 5, without having to blink an eye at it, and before the season started, I wanted to put money on Iowa State making the Elite Eight and then see if it wins, and then take at least half or more and let it ride and go into the Final Four or whatever. But I don't know. It's just frustrating, but I don't think it's a letdown. I think it's a peak to what next year could bring. Granted, you're going to lose a couple pieces to the nil or whatever and bring in what you want. But I think TJ's kind of getting his longevity or what he wants in place, and it wasn't a 2-year deal. I mean, he was decent the first couple of years, but now he's getting to where it's a little bit easier. I know it's never going to be easy with the nil and all the money.
He can walk into more living rooms today than he could when he first stepped on foot at campus.
Yeah, and he goes somewhere even outside of Iowa, and a kid knows that's TJ Elsberger, this coach at Iowa State. He goes to an AAU big time showcase tournament, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, he's a good coach," or whatever. He's got the name for that. And recruiting kids to Iowa is harder in general, I feel, to begin with. And I just because it could be a little bit of my Iowa love, but I feel like it would be easier to recruit a kid to come to Iowa City, a bigger city than Ames, but he's beating Iowa at right now in that aspect for his coaching ability, for his whatever.
The only thing I'd say to that is him and Fran were not recruiting the same player.
Oh, yeah. True.
So heads up, they didn't go against each other a whole lot.
Right.
They're just recruiting a different player.
Yeah. But I'm saying if they did, I'd rather play for TJ. I mean, if I have all the skills to do what he wants and I have all the skills to do what Fran wants, yeah, playing for Fran would be fun, going out and just scoring. But for winning, you look at that, TJ's got a better track record as of late. I don't know overall on that stuff, but
right. Well, he's been to 2 Sweet 16s. Fran's never been to one in 35 years as a coach.
Right.
And TJ's been a head coach maybe 10.
Yeah. And again, I don't know all those stats and those things, but
I would have to do some math. I don't know that for sure, but he's been to 2. So as a Cyclone fan, and this is a fair debate, I think it's a disappointment, not a failure. Because if they were all healthy and they lost this game, it's a failure.
Then it would be a failure, yes.
But because of circumstance, and you can say it's excuses, but it is reasons. There's reasons they didn't play as well. And it all comes back to now, a little bit's coincidence, a little bit injuries happened before and after that 70-foot shot in Arizona. If that shot is not made, they are 18-2 and 8-1 in the Big 12. Instead, they drop that game and they go 9-10. No, 9-9 since. Now,
I did watch that game a little bit. Yeah, that was huge. I don't know. I mean, again, that's just luck of the draw there. I mean,
and you still could have won that game because it went to overtime. That didn't end it.
Right.
It went to overtime.
But it's a deflating thing.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like the team goes on a run and then they hit another 3, and it's like, my dad had coached, and he coached boys and girls, but he had a girls state basketball team, number 2 all season. Girl hits a half-court shot at the horn to lose by 1.
Yeah.
Nothing but net. And it's like, how, but so I mean, that's your Iowa State game's a bigger stage, obviously. And that was, I mean, I don't know. Arizona's tough too. And you guys, and again, you had Auburn down, you had Arizona down, you had, I don't know. It's just, I go with you. I know you can say, like you said, it's an excuse, but to me, I grew up with a coach, and he always say, well, this kid, I'd like to play him again one more time, or, and it sucks. I get it. And especially as a fan, and I don't know, it's just amazing how that shot went in Arizona.
Yeah. And it's just, and they lost other games. There's a game at Oklahoma State they shouldn't have lost. I mean, they lost some games they shouldn't have. I mean, but just once that hit, they were number 2 in the country, ready to go. And
another thing my dad always said, you can have the best team in the world, but it takes a little bit of luck too, and
absolutely.
Arizona had it that night, and whatever, so I mean, I don't know. It's just crazy.
All right, let's move on to the NCAA tournament in the whole. 16 teams left. 7 SEC, 4 Big 12, then I believe 4 Big 10, and then 1 ACC. No Cinderellas, all big-time programs. The Cinderella is dead officially in this tournament now.
Yep. And honestly, I told you I was struggling to find my bracket before we started, but I have a lot of those teams that are there. I mean, maybe it's just because, again, a little bit of luck, but also, the Cinderella is dead. And I would say the Cinderella, if you want to give it to somebody, would probably be Arkansas or BYU, but neither team was bad this year.
Yeah, Arkansas is the lowest seed, so they're the 10 seed. So the double-digit seed did make it again.
But I did pick them to beat Kansas.
And that's what I got a buddy that he is a Kansas fan. He was like, he like, I had Kansas, and then he had Kansas beating St. He goes, I didn't believe in St. John's. He goes, I
Yeah.
think whoever won that game, Kansas or Arkansas, would have beat St. John's.
I went with St. John's beating Arkansas, but my kid was telling me some stuff. That's why I did get who was the 15 or 12-5 on the right side, lower level, I believe.
Well, McNeese was the 12-5, and then
McNeese.
Colorado State beat
I did
Memphis
pick
as well.
McNeese, and I did Colorado on a couple of them, but yeah, McNeese I did pick, but
Yeah, it was. But overall, and then the discussion is I do think NIL has something to do with this.
yeah, because
You
it
look at
used
the
to
Missouri Valley, and Drake won a game, but they've got a whole new roster and a new coach. But 15 players, first, second, third team, one player was back. There's some that graduated, and then everybody else transferred
Yep.
up a level. Even if they're sitting on the bench, think of Joseph Yesufu, who left Drake and sat on the bench at Kansas, won a national title.
And they're getting money, and they're
Yeah.
not even playing. We're getting more money than what they got at Drake or wherever.
Yeah, and I think that is what's happening, and I think that's where Iowa and Iowa State are a little step behind, like at Kansas, Duke, North Carolina. Iowa State ran into it. They can pay starters 6, 7, maybe 8 deep, but they can't go 10, 11, 12 deep with the NIL guys.
Yeah.
Duke can't. So a guy gets hurt, they got another guy ready to
Another
come in.
5-star right there.
And that's what Alabama did for so long in football in Georgia. And now some of those players, I think football, where it's spread out a little bit more, I think a little bit the opposite way compared to basketball, because there's so many. I mean, no one can pay $100,000 for 50 football players.
No.
I mean, just doesn't.
Yeah.
So you're only going to pay a certain amount of football players big time money. Well, now number 25 can go get one of those top 15 in another program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's what
the answer to every question is what, Tassell?
Money.
Money. The answer to every question is
that's
money.
what I said. But I was going to say, you kind of look at it as, I always liken it a little bit, but without the money, okay? I liken it to, you've got a number 6, 7, 8 player at Waukee Northwest, and they play 6 deep, and you're 7, 8, 9, whoever. They play 6 deep, and you don't get to play but scrub minutes. Where are you going? Van Meter, Adele, and you can commute there. That's the nice thing about those things. Money is out of that, obviously, but if it goes back to that junior college atmosphere a little bit, where I can go here, and if I have a good enough year, show some film to this coach, and then I might be able to go play there now. They don't have to stay. It's just so crazy how you can do that. And then obviously the money to boot on top of all of it is crazy.
You're just amazed at, when I was watching games and everything, how many kids have been to 3 and 4 schools? Like, they just go every year.
Yeah. Well, who's the guy playing for Arizona now that played at North Carolina, I think, last year?
Caleb Love.
Yeah. And think about North Carolina, they could have had him again, but no. I don't know. It frustrates me, because that is why I almost don't have a favorite team in the NFL or NBA anymore, because I like certain players and they don't stick around more than 2 to 3 years, and then they go somewhere else. I don't want college basketball to get to that point.
It's there.
Yeah, I know.
And the NBA is hard for me to watch, because I go watch a game. I have no idea where any of these kids went to school. Used to be, oh, that kid played at Duke. That kid played at North Carolina.
Well, now it's even worse. He played 1 year at Duke, and then Arizona, and then North Carolina.
Yeah. Or he played in Europe, and then can't even say his name, and he's better than everybody else, and he didn't even play in college.
Yeah. Yeah, he played 3 years in the European Pro League, and then he came to America and played because he was that good.
Right.
Yeah, I know. That's what's frustrating to me when it goes from college to NFL, college to NBA. I always grew up Michael Jordan, his team, the Bulls were my team. Still are my team if I had to pick one, probably.
Right.
My dad was a huge Celtics fan, so I like the Celtics. I've always had a little heart for them. I was a huge Bears fan when I was a little kid, but I loved Walter Payton and Jim McMahon. I dressed as Jim McMahon 2 times for Halloween and
Yeah.
spiked my hair and headband. And then I was a huge Peyton Manning fan, so I became a Colts fan. I always loved Joe Montana and Jerry Rice growing up, but they stuck with their teams longer too, which, granted, the day and age, it's harder to do.
Yeah, I mean, and the transfer portal, you think it's always the player trying to move. Sometimes it's see ya.
Yeah,
They are asked to leave sometimes.
yeah. Well, and you're okay. So we'll go after your top 50 high school recruits. Those guys are the ones. Okay, I'd like to be, a backup to the point guard at Iowa State or the point guard at Iowa, and get those 5 to 8 minutes a half. But
Right.
I don't know. And like you said earlier, most coming in right out of high school are not ready for that, and maybe that's why they get a few slough games, if you call it that. But then those aren't as easy anymore either.
Right. Because I mean, look at like McNeese State, who would be one of those games. They're all 23 years old and been to 3 different schools, and out of high school, they probably went to a Georgia Tech or a Duke, and just didn't play, and then went down. Now they're being stud again. Now they can go back up.
Mm-hmm. Is that coach going somewhere? I haven't heard.
Yeah, he's going to North Carolina State, and all the guys are going with him.
Gotcha. Well, and
I
then
mean,
he'll
he just
probably
flat out admitted he pays players. He got in trouble at LSU, got fired. They got him on a wiretap. Yep, how much it cost? But now it's legal, so who cares?
Yeah, that's like back in the days when Alabama probably did it in football when nobody else was.
Yeah. Well, everybody was doing it. It's just the old rumor was there was a lot of casinos involved in that stuff. That's how you can do it.
Huh.
Because you can go get
Say they won.
$100,000 in casino chips, and you don't necessarily have to cash them in. You can distribute them out.
That's crazy.
Then they can go cash them in individually.
That's crazy. Who do you think's gonna? I got 2 teams that I've put pretty consistently in most of my brackets, and that's Duke and Florida. I don't want to change the subject on you if you're not ready for that. But
yeah, we need to get to that. We're just under an hour here. I usually don't like going too much more of an hour. Those are good picks.
I had 1 or 2.
I got Houston winning, but I do not like their draw. Because of where it's at. It's not so much the teams they play. So they're the 1 seed. They're playing the 4 seed Purdue in Indianapolis. So essentially a road game.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 2 and 3 in that bracket are Tennessee and Kentucky. Well, Tennessee and Kentucky, especially Kentucky, is like 2.5 hours away from Indianapolis. And Kentucky fan base is nuts. They were in Milwaukee. They've been in Nashville, and we've been there, not going to the tournament, but during the same time as the SEC tournament. They are crazy. And they go everywhere. So there's going to be road games for Houston.
Did I hear Kentucky's got some guys that were injured too, though?
Maybe. They looked pretty good yesterday. I watched that game. I watched the Illinois-Kentucky game.
I had Illinois beating them because I thought
Kentucky looked good.
Well,
I thought Illinois never really had a chance, I didn't think, in that game.
Yeah, most of mine were either Duke or Florida winning it in the championship together. I don't know.
The only thing you worry about with Duke is it is freshman.
Yeah.
Now he's really good. He's really, really, really good.
Yeah.
But he is a freshman. And he just turned 18 in December. So he actually probably should still be in high school. Think about that.
That's crazy. I don't know. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Purdue, Houston could be a tough game too. I think.
Oh, I think
Purdue's
it's a
impressed
horrible
me
draw
this
for
year.
Houston.
Purdue's impressed me this year, and I didn't think Purdue or Maryland would get. Well, I didn't think Maryland would get to this point, and I didn't think Purdue would get past Houston. But I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, it's a crapshoot now. It's all big time teams. No Cinderellas left.
Auburn's had a couple scares. That's why I think Michigan State, if they can get there, has a chance. And I like Izzo as a
Izzo's
coach.
got a championship. Calipari has a championship. You know, a Bruce Pearl, a Nate Oates, a Golden. None of those guys have championships.
Mm-hmm.
Even Shire, he's got championship in it as a player.
Right.
So I do think that helps. I'm pretty sure he won a title with.
I thought
with
he
Duke.
did too.
Yeah. But he hasn't won one either. Yeah, you give Izzo just a little bit. He's really good when it comes to this stuff.
And to me, he's kind of like a Kirk Ferentz. You give him time to prepare.
Right.
He's going to come out with something, I think. I think he'll adjust his defense as he needs to a little bit.
I think they'll beat Ole Miss pretty good.
And Ole Miss had a career game against Iowa State shooting. Yeah. There's got to be a little bit of a letdown, I would say, shooting.
They shot really well in the game against North Carolina too.
Yeah, they've impressed me. I didn't think they were that good, but I didn't know. But I was just, you know.
Well, here's it. They've got a coach that's coached in a championship game. He didn't win it.
Yeah.
I think was that the one that went to overtime against Virginia. I mean, so he was close.
Yeah.
When he was at Texas Tech, and then
BYU
he actually still should be at Texas, but he got fired because of the domestic violence that got dropped. But they fired him before all that. I mean,
Did BYU? What do you think of them and Bama?
BYU well, that's going to be one high. That's going to be one high scoring deal.
So bet the over.
I would, but well, I don't know because the over is going to be a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be 85 to 95.
Maybe we'll tease a parlay out of the deal somehow.
Yeah. All right. So pick one team who you think's going to win it?
I put Duke in most of mine. That's what I got.
I'm still going to go Houston, but they got a raw deal.
Yeah. It's one of those three, I feel, Duke, Florida, Houston. But I put Duke more often than anybody else. And to me, it's just Duke. And Duke, you walk in the gym and they've got 5 to 10 points on the scoreboard. Not saying a lead guaranteed against some of those teams, but
right.
They're guaranteed going to be right there.
The only thing that might get them a little worried is their conference sucks.
Yeah.
And it's proven with only one team. It's amazing. One ACC team in the Sweet 16. Growing up, it would have been 4 Big East teams, 4 ACC teams, and then split the other half the other way.
Yeah. Yep. And every year I try to pick some Big Ten teams going deep, and then they don't. And then the years I don't pick them, they do. And so this year I went with Michigan State still, and I got a nice little bet. Hopefully it works, but for Michigan State.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tass, for joining me tonight. We'll finish it up there. I'm going to pick Houston still, but it's tough, and you're going with Duke. Can never go wrong with. Unfortunately, I'm not a Duke fan, but unfortunately they've got a few titles to back up what they do.
Yeah.
But no, thanks a lot, TJ, and we'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mark.